Hello and welcome to Wolfman Gaming. This is my Uncharted 4 Crushing Difficulty walkthrough, and this is chapter 17, also known as For Better or Worse. And this is part 2 of that chapter and the dreaded elevator fight. And as I said in my previous video, the key to winning this fight is actually knowing the spawns to some extent, and also you have to be, or I like to be, very aggressive here at the start. Because Elena can be a great help in her little elevator actually. She is not too good at killing enemies, but her in combination with this pillar and knowing where the enemies are gonna show up is what's gonna get you through this part. And the first guy you saw me take out was a sniper. And we're gonna remember that. Because the sniper rifle is a great help. I wasted a little bit by trying to take out 2 enemies in this area, which is a mistake on my behalf. I recommend you save it for the second part. Because the second part of this fight is, I'm gonna call it out for what it is. It is, in my opinion, the most bullshit fight in the entire Uncharted series. There, I said it, I stand by it. And it is bullshit for a few different reasons. Because you start off in a shitty position. Enemies in this game, as I've mentioned before, and which you have seen, and if you have played it you definitely know this, they love to lob grenades. And in my opinion there is no good way to approach that area. Or I found a way that works. It's not the most effective. It's not the fastest way to do it. I guess someone out there has found a super aggressive, really great way of doing it. There always is. Always that one person that has found a way to just break the game and dominate. I have not found that way, but I have found a strategy that for some it shouldn't work. I think, but it does actually. And it's based around getting a Baroque that is on the right side of the battlefield in the next sequence. And this is me wasting sniper rounds because I have 3 bullets for my sniper rifle. Do not use them here. I will change my strategy because I fuck about with this sniper rifle trying to hit the enemies, not succeeding, just wasting a bullet. And that is not something I recommend. You see? Just blow a hole in thin air. What you should do, and what I will do as soon as I realize that sniper rifle isn't gonna work, is climb up on this pillar and try to utilize the cover trick. It doesn't really work in this game, but it does work to some extent. Which is what's gonna save my ass. And one thing that is really important in this fight, that is also a little mistake I did, which I realized when I rewatched this video before starting to narrate it, is make sure to not waste your bullets, because I start this part with 34 bullets for my para. And the para is such a great weapon. You should be able to kill anything and everything throughout this chapter with it, if you don't act like an idiot and waste bullets. So make sure that every bullet counts. Always make sure that you will hit your target. Let it take a long time. If that's what's needed, let it do that. Because you see me right there, I was starting to get frustrated. Never get frustrated when it comes to this fight. It is unfair. In all actuality, actually. That's also a great sentence. Thank you, Wolfman, for your amazing English skills. But don't waste bullets. Let it take time. Because it is hard. You may get frustrated. If you get frustrated, just pause the game, walk away. If you're a smoker, have a cigarette. If you're not a smoker, this fight will probably make you start. But if you aren't a smoker, don't start smoking. I smoke. It's one of the dumbest decisions I've ever made in my life to start. So don't do that. Stay away from cigarettes, kids. They will not do anything good for you, and it is not cool to be a smoker. All we do is cough every morning when we wake up, and we have shitty lungs and all that stuff. But this is the part where you start, or where I really start getting nervous, because now we are getting close to the second part of this fight. And as I mentioned in my previous video, there is actually a checkpoint halfway through this. You see the guy with the fossa, or the Uzi kind of weapon, standing on that little pillar over there to my right. He's over on the right side of the screen. I think it's a heavy even. That's your checkpoint. But for that checkpoint to trigger, you need to get to it. And that is something that's easier said than done. You see right now I'm being extremely cautious, and so you should be as well. That is also once again me wasting bullets trying to speed this fight up. I was getting angry because I was stuck here for quite a while. And as I said, I think I mentioned it in my previous video, if there hadn't been a checkpoint here, you wouldn't be watching this walkthrough actually. Most probably not, because the first part, it looked probably quite fluent when I did it. It took me quite a few tries to learn where the enemies were and not start aiming like a right idiot. Which I do sometimes. That is also something I've talked about to a great extent. The fact that if you watch my videos, you can see that sometimes I aim godlike, if I may say so myself. Most of the time, my aim is absolutely shitty. And that is also something that is quite good when it comes to these walkthroughs, because these strategies are based around getting an average player through the highest difficulties whenever I record a walkthrough on higher difficulties, because I cannot do consistent headshots or something like that. I can't. I don't have those skills, and I wouldn't want to make a walkthrough that relies on that. By the way, here we have the checkpoint. This, when you get to this platform, you're past the first part. If you die, saw a little transition right there. If you die, that's where you will restart. And this is where the sniper rifle would be great, or is great to bring with you. Because I have 2 bullets, I try to make the best of them as I can. And in that area up there, I think you have to kill a total of 4 enemies for a heavy to spawn. A heavy with a shotgun will spawn in. And now I'm gonna go and fetch the Baroque. It's over here on my right. So grab it and go down immediately. When you're hanging off this waterfall, you're actually quite safe. I was quite amazed when I realized that you could go for the Baroque and head back without getting killed. But now we're gonna have to take out, I think it's 2 more guys before the heavy will spawn in. And do not, whatever you do, do not waste these Baroque bullets. Because the heavy will take 3 of those bullets to die. So we're gonna have to make sure that we have at least 3 bullets left when he decides to join the party. Because I tried a few different strategies and I got trolled by the heavy every time. Because you can, if you're feeling really ballsy, you can go up on this platform and jump over to the left. You saw that guy just lobbing a grenade. Go for him, try to pull him off. And it worked good as well. But when the heavy showed up, I was dead. And that's usually what happens when you get too close to heavies. And there you saw me wasting a bullet. But now I have killed the right amount of enemies for the heavy to come in. You see him right there, and he's bringing a condor. So what I like to do is go down, and that jump, that jump is scary, boy. Because this is also one of those moments. If I had missed that jump, which you can do, I've talked about that the platforming in this game is extremely clumsy sometimes. Which is also another reason why this fight feels so unfair. Because sometimes Nate really doesn't want to cooperate. And in most of the games in this series, it isn't such a big problem, because the fights can be challenging, but they aren't nearly as challenging or as tedious as this fight is. Because now we are back by the platform, and this is what I'm talking about. Because, okay, this is a decent cover, they cannot hit me. But I rarely get a window to hit them, because they are constantly tossing grenades, and they will always hit just by the edge. So be careful whenever you're hanging by that top ledge. As soon as you see a grenade closing in, immediately press circle and make sure you have a lower ledge beneath you, so you don't end up falling to your death. Which can happen also when the platforming isn't cooperating. And I can tell you right now, which I just remembered, when I got this far into the fight, oh my god, I was nervous. Because you can see my actions are starting to get a little bit on the erratic side at times. Because I knew that maybe this is the time that I will make it. And since it made it into the walkthrough, this was the time. And this checkpoint, you saw the transition when I was hanging from this platform. It took me 90 minutes of failed attempts to do this part of the fight. The first part took me around 30-40 minutes, which I was expecting, but I had forgotten how hard this fight was. And the biggest problem I found was my aiming. Because most of the times I managed to get to the Baroque and back. So that's why I know that it works. It shouldn't work, but it does. But when I got the Baroque, I always got nervous and started firing sloppily and started missing enemies. And that is something you cannot do, because you need, as I said, you need the Baroque bullets to take out the heavy. And I think actually that was the last guy. We have finally beaten this giant gauntlet of bullshit fight. And this fight is actually the reason why I didn't very much enjoy playing through this game on crushing, which is a sad thing to say, because I really like this game series. And all the games in this series are quite fun to play on crushing. At least the first 3. But this fight actually more or less kills the enjoyment of this game for me. But if you want to, you can go into this fight. That is something I'm not quite sure if I mentioned it before, but if you have beaten this game once, you will unlock tweaks. And these tweaks, that is something they have been very kind with when it comes to this game. Because you can unlock that you have different types of weapons, and you can have unlimited ammo and all that good stuff for them. And if you want to, you can unlock, say for example, the Baroque or a rocket launcher or whatever, and just go in and dominate this entire fight, because you can have unlimited ammo and just bend them over a bench and sodomize them, basically. And I was tempted to do it, but that would have been cheating, in my opinion. And I have beaten this game on crushing before, and I knew I could do it. I just needed to find a consistent strategy to do it and not aim like an idiot, and I managed to get through it. But if you get really stuck, you aren't able to beat it, then unlock a few tweaks and just crush them and send them my best when you do it. But I'm gonna talk a little bit about the story, because after that fight, it's actually smooth sailing through the rest of this chapter, I think. But this chapter is called For Better or Worse. And I think I've talked about this a little bit before in this walkthrough. I mentioned that there is a big problem with pacing in this game. And also there is a problem with the story, actually. Because as we all know, Nate and Elena have gotten married. That's where the For Better or Worse part comes in. And I think if you're married to Nathan Drake, I think actually the worse parts of your marriage outweigh to some extent the better parts. Because I don't think he's an easy person to live with. Elena must really love this guy, because he is an adventurer and he is a bit of a fuck up, to put it lightly. But the basics of the story in this game, we have established the fact that Sam returns. And Sam, or Nate, thought that Sam was dead when he met Elena. He has never mentioned Sam to Elena, which is really weird. Because if we look at these two guys' track record, Elena has followed Nate through all kinds of adventures. They have been close to death God knows how many times. They have experienced amazing adventures together. They have had bullets flying past their asses. They have taken down warlords and old cursed treasures, all that good stuff. But a positive thing, like my long lost brother, who I assumed was dead, has risen from such dead and returned, is something that Nate doesn't feel that he can tell his wife. A wife that has stood by him through thick and thin, better and worse, like this chapter is called. For some reason he decides to withhold that information from her. And that doesn't make sense in the grand scheme of things. Because they decide to write it like that, just to get more drama into the story, and probably to motivate why you don't have Elena as an AI companion throughout the game, and also in the fact that they have left their treasure hunting days behind them. Because that is also a premise of this game, that Nate works as a diver for a salvage company. Elena has gone back to being a journalist and a reporter. But it still bugs me, because why wouldn't he tell her about this? This is quite vital information. And it's not negative information. It just expands their family. But it puts into this chapter, it makes, there's a lot of tension behind or between these two, and I actually thought that it would lead up to a part where they would go their separate ways once again, because that is also something that's been the staple of these games that they have had an on and off relationship. I have no idea why they broke up after the second game. You just get told that it's something that Nate has done. And I can realize why she left him. Probably he went off adventuring once again and she decided to just fuck it and leave. But now we can enjoy the calm. Actually, but just as a little footnote when it comes to the story, they could have done it a bit more consistent, but it is the Neil Druckmann way. He wants to do it very dramatic. And there has to be some sorrow. You have to feel for these characters. But now we can enjoy the scenery for once. And just revel in the fact that we have beaten one of the absolute hardest parts of the entire series. Because all these games have a gauntlet in them. But none of them are as hard as the one we have just gotten through. If you manage to beat chapter 17, you will beat the ship graveyard fight in chapter 20. There's not a doubt in my mind, and there shouldn't be one in yours either. But this is a little platforming sequence where we have to tension up the mood a little bit and get rid of the jeep. Because we all know you never get to keep vehicles for very long in these games. Or you only get to use vehicles in this game and in The Lost Legacy. Except for that small little runway run in Uncharted 3. But we are getting close to the end of this. Or to the end of this game. And what was I saying? And it does ramp up the difficulty here towards the end. That is something that is always in games. Because when you get closer to the end of a game, they always ramp up the difficulty. Bring in heavier enemies and do it harder, but nothing will be as hard as that was. Or at least not in my opinion. And that is also a thing. Whenever you're playing a game like this, people will always be struggling on different parts of it. Because something that I may think is really easy is something that someone else will have a big problem with, and something that I think is very hard. There are probably people out there watching this video or hearing about this video that think that elevator fight is the easiest part of this game. And maybe they have a super good strategy for it. Who knows? But this part actually reminds me a little bit of Far Cry 5. Because I've been playing a lot of Far Cry 5 the last couple of days. And I must say, that is also something. It's really fun. I had just about given up on Ubisoft, but they actually managed to prove me wrong when it came to this new game. Because there are a lot of similarities between that and the previous games in the series. Some characters show up again, but as I think I mentioned before, they have changed just enough for it to make it feel what was I saying? To make it feel fresh and a bit innovative. They have redone the perk system, which was a great thing. They have made it so you can unlock perks a bit more in your own choosing, so you can unlock them to fit your playstyle, which is a really good thing. And you can explore the entire map from the beginning, and you can take down the leaders in every which way you choose. But this is the end of chapter 17, so I want to thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again in my next video. So until next time, this is the Wolfman signing off.